The Mandalorian to explore the origins of the First Order. That is a headline on this week's Force Friday show.
Yes, Stephen, this one is coming in from Entertainment Weekly, and it is one Dave Filoni, obviously one of the directors of an indeterminate amount of episodes, who has been speaking about the show, and he says, and I quote, "This doesn't turn into a good guy universe because you blew up two Death Stars. You get that the rebels won and they're trying to establish a republic, but there's no way that could have set in for everybody all at once. You have in a western where you're out in the frontier, and there might be Washington, and they might have some marshals, but sometimes good luck finding one." And then he goes on to say, Stephen, I'll paraphrase this one a little, that essentially within 30 years of what could happen in 30 years after the defeat and whatnot in the First Order, he's basically essentially saying, we're going to be looking at the origins of the First Order in depth.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of this? Are you
this
excited
is,
about this? Does this shock you to your very core?
No, not really. It was coming. I didn't know when it was coming. That was what I was going to say, John. The Mandalorian set 7 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. Is that right? Around about then? Yeah.
I think you're right.
So I suppose it's time. I think Jon Favreau knew what he was doing when he was sorting out the timeline of this series. It gives enough time, I suppose, for some formation of what comes next. I've got to be honest with you, I didn't think it would be as soon as that. I thought on the sort of back end of that, I thought the First Order would have probably been about 10, 15 years before The Force Awakens. But it looks like they've got a bit of history by the time we get to see them in Episode 7. These things don't come overnight. I'm not naive in that way, but I didn't think this series would even tap into that. I thought perhaps it was going to be that sort of lull period where the Republic is trying to sort out the galaxy after the Empire. But I suppose it makes sense. It's got to start somewhere, so why not here?
Yes, Stephen, they do say that in the article as well, that when we do get introduced to the First Order in The Force Awakens, they're not just starting up, they've not just started mobilising a couple of months prior to the events of the movie. They're very much an established force in this galaxy, in this universe. They have a whole fleet. They have several massive ships. Also, when we get to the events of The Last Jedi, it's almost occurring seamlessly, one film into the next. We have the Supremacy, which is a gigantic, what the hell, gigantic ship. So they are very much established in this galaxy. And how much time is it taking them to assemble all of this? Who knows? Perhaps it does start at the beginning of The Mandalorian, because it is 7 years after. And as we do know, Stephen, from the likes of the Aftermath novels and whatnot, there was always splinter groups of the fallen Empire working sometimes individually, sometimes in conjunction with each other to try and create a new empire.
It's not any different to any other fallout of war, John.
I always forget the character's name in the Aftermath, the Admiral, the female Admiral. Admiral, I want to say now, but it's not.
I mean, it's 7 years on. They're obviously not going to be completely formed in that time, but that is the origin, so there will be discussions in the background perhaps of where that organisation are going, because as you said, John, they've got all these divisions that will eventually all merge into the one, and it's not any different to the Rebel Alliance, which was cutscenes. Actually, it was one of the things that really annoyed me about George Lucas deciding to cut those scenes out. With the formation of the Rebel Alliance in Attack of the Clones, I think it was, and it carried on into Episode 3 as well.
It was Bail Organa, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was him and Padme was in there, and Mon Mothma, and they were all there, and for some reason, Lucas decided it wasn't part of the story. I thought it was quite interesting, actually. I would have liked to have seen that kept in, but nevertheless, I think this will be handled in the same sort of way from that point of view, where you'll have these admirals from the previous regime. They don't want to give up their power. How it is, and you'll start to see all these blocks all falling into place. So it makes sense. As I said, I wasn't prepared for when it was going to be. I didn't think they would actually get right into this, in this first series. But one of the things I do like about these television series, which we're going to see with the likes of the Mandalorian, the Cassian Andor one as well, and obviously the upcoming Obi-Wan series, is it helps the films along as well, because when we did get to see back in 2015 The Force Awakens, it was quite jarring to see a new organisation. It was as if it was just set up, the day before. From our perspective, you've got to take into account, it's been 30 years since Return of the Jedi.
As well, Stephen. How long would it have taken to build a facility of that size?
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Stephen, I was going to mention the likes of Admiral Ray Sloan, who was in the Aftermath trilogy. She was part of this splinter, sort of a rebel group within the Fallen Empire, who wanted to go off and do something different. You had different warring factions and whatnot, and then I think at some point they've all coalesced together. Have not been keeping up with the novels. I'm firmly behind. I'll need to read the Thrawn novels and whatnot. I'm sure he had a big part to play in the aftermath of the original trilogy and perhaps shaping things. But maybe they've coalesced together, Steve, and then got their act together and started tying into maybe disenfranchised worlds, which have thought we've got a new start here with this Republic, New Republic, and then things have perhaps not paid off nicely. We do see Filoni mentioning that there's maybe some little fires burning in the sides, ended up in hot water again.
Yeah, I think
essentially they've not been managed the way they should have.
We've been talking about it, John, with Palpatine and his grander plan, in the outer regions, with all the different sort of technology that he was, experimenting in, the cloning and stuff like that, and this was all done, and we don't know if it continued, if his work continued. I think it did, after obviously his demise, or his so-called demise, so it would make sense.
Stephen, I was going to get into that. Do you think, obviously this takes for what, I'm answering my own question here, but perhaps for season 2, which I know has already been green-lighted, perhaps we'll not dive into it in this season, because obviously the Mandalorian comes out prior to the Rise of Skywalker. But do you think some of the reveals, perhaps from Rise of Skywalker, of what has been going on in the background with the First Order, perhaps nefarious things with the Emperor in the uncharted regions of the galaxy, maybe some of those reveals will have bearing on the story of the First Order in the Mandalorian season 2 once we're after the Rise of Skywalker?
I think it will, John. I think this is the way they're handling it. It's not any different to what they do with the comics or the books. They put things in these other platforms that interlace with what you see on the cinema screen. I still maintain that you're going to get that with this Matt Smith. I might be wrong, but I think he is going to be based on a flashback as a young Palpatine. And we will get a television series, or he might pop up in the Bynolf and Wise films. Matt Smith, that is, as the young Emperor, what's his name? Palpatine.
Chief Palpatine.
Chief, that's the name. I think he will pop up. That's my theory anyway.
Stephen, the final thing I'll add is just once again this discussion of it being a Western, the fact that this is like sort of a uncharted frontier. It's out of the way of the inner squabbling in politics within perhaps the central regions of the galaxy. There's not much law out here. Talk of there being perhaps, as he does say, what is the quote again? Maybe what marshals. There's not any marshals coming out this far. So you're seeing obviously the dregs of the Empire, the fallen Empire, coming out and trying to get their acts together and then reform as a new organisation. And how this will impact on the guys like the Mandalorian, this lone gunslinger. It's going to be very interesting. I think, like yourself, Stephen, I think you alluded to it earlier on, that we'll see maybe the rise of the First Order and them being a sort of a overarching villain throughout the franchise, and we'll have more minor villains popping up, the likes of the Giancarlo Esposito character, Moff Gideon. But Stephen, that will take us on to the next topic very nicely, because I'd mentioned Admiral Ray Sloan. She is already firmly within the canon. She is an existing character. They are saying that there will not be any existing characters popping up in this Mandalorian show, and that rules out the likes of Boba Fett, Stephen, which is what this topic's all about. Boba Fett won't appear in the Mandalorian, which is what it just says there, and not so many words. And I think this is Jon Favreau who was speaking to, this is going all over the place, this screen, I don't know why. He was speaking to Slash Film, or maybe even Good Morning America via Slash Film, and he says that Boba Fett is not, they are all new original characters. There's a 30-year stretch of story time that hasn't been explored at all, except in the extended universe. So we've got confirmation that Boba will not be appearing in this show. I think we're both happy about it, Stephen, but this then rules out the likes of maybe Thrawn, Admiral Ray, Son and whatnot, and existing characters coming in. It's all new characters and all new stories.
I don't think it rules anything out, John, because...
At this specific show,
anyway. It's certainly in this first series, but what's the hurry, you know? We don't know how many series of this we're going to get. We don't know how long...
multiple if it's good.
Yeah, we don't know how long Jon Favreau wants to do it for. I'm sure he's got a grand plan of where he wants to take this. There's no reason to say that Boba Fett will not appear at some point. The problem with that is, though, you've got a lot of explaining to do, and it's a television series, and do you really need to, have we got the time to really get into his backstory as well? Well, we're trying to establish a backstory for this Mandalorian character and all these, as you said, John, all these new characters. It would have to be the long game. It would have to... Once we're established with these characters, the likes of Carol Weathers, etc., Pedro Pascal's character, once these are all fleshed out, we've got to know them. We know the ones we like, we know the ones we despise, we know what they're like, we know what their intentions are, what they're scheming. Then there might be room maybe in the second series or the third series to reintroduce this iconic character. Who knows?
Stephen, I completely agree. This everything he says is basically what I was thinking as well when I read this. You've got a whole host of new characters to establish. You have got 10 episodes, I believe, an hour length each one, so you have got plenty of time to do it, but you don't want to be I always say bagging, you don't want to be bogging yourself down unnecessarily, trying to flesh out an existing character and how he blends into the canon and whatnot, just the mythos at this time, and the mythology at this stage, and the story. You want to be given plenty of room for the Pedro Pascal Mandalorian to do his thing. He's the primary character. You bring in Boba Fett, he's already this looming, ominous sort of a infamous character from the original trilogy. He would overshadow the events.
I never thought of that, John,
and then you've
right.
got the likes of Nick Nolte's character as well, Werner Herzog, and as I did mention before, also Giancarlo Esposito. You want to give these characters their own breathing room, their own stories to do, then they can do it.
Well, we still don't know if how they're going to do the episodes. So is it going to be an overall story arc, that continues all throughout the background, which I assume there's going to be, because that's how they do these things. Or are we going to get a sort of a villain of the week type thing? I don't know, but you're right, I never actually thought about that, John. Bringing someone in like Boba Fett, who's got such a cult following, could overshadow the show a little bit. Or he could be kept as a surprise for, because I think they really want this show to take off, and I'm sure it will. One of the other channels on YouTube, John Compare, was discussing that this series could be one of the most pirated television series in history, because of the likes of ourselves in the UK are not getting Disney Plus right away. That's the problem though, because the whole of the US will be getting this first. The internet will spread the speculation, the excitement, the breakdown of the episodes as well, which we are supposed to just not know about, ignore, without seeing this. I don't think we're getting it for a few months yet, John. So,
well, Stephen, I've seen an interesting development on that one. Not in relation to the Mandalorian, but Sky have got access to all of the Star Wars movies.
There we go.
You can watch them on demand, every Star Wars movie. So how the hell would that play into Disney Plus coming over here when they are supposed to have the rights to all the Star Wars movies? So Sky have the rights.
So what's it costing Disney Plus US per month? $5. So we'd have to subscribe to it. It's probably, I think the minimum you can spend on a Sky subscription is probably about £40 or something like a month.
So that's about $70.
Yeah, it's very fair.
Yeah. Yes, that's just for the Star Wars movies. Yeah. But clearly, if they have the rights to the Star Wars movies,
they're going to break this up, John. We are going to get Disney Light, and the Mandalorian is going to appear on Sky Atlantic, guarantee it.
Yeah, which is not good for people who don't have Sky, Stephen, and don't want to give money.
And it's going to be 3 months down the line when probably not. That's why I'm saying, that John Compare's talking about this. This is going to be one of the most pirated, television series in history. But that's the fault of, the powers above.
Rupert Murdoch. Yeah. That's what it's the fault of, Stephen. But yeah, I do think it will be an overarching story. Stephen, you'll have one group of villains, perhaps the First Order, and Giancarlo Esposito's character. Yeah. Just this ragtag group of maybe splinter cells of the fallen empire, just coming up against the lawlessness and just the Mandalorian in general, or maybe just wreaking havoc, because they know it's like the Third Reich falling at the end of World War II. It's just all chaos. It's just chaos. There's no...
There's still power struggles
going on. The authority's just gone, Stephen, from the top, so they can do what they want, rape, pillage and whatever, and he's coming in. And that would actually play into what Pedro Pascal says about the character, that ultimately he wants to do the right thing. So he's a very different character thematically to Boba Fett, and that may be something...
he's got morals for kick-off,
That can be something they explore later down, maybe in the second or third season. They bring Boba Fett in, he faces off against the Mandalorian, two distinctly different characters, warring over who's the proper Mandalorian, because obviously Boba is not seen as a proper Mandalorian now. He just stole the armour, but I think he was within one of their systems, but he's not recognised. So maybe that could be a bit of a beef they have together at some point in the future. Save your, obviously, what you've got in terms of storylines till later on, and establish these great new characters first and foremost. But Stephen, I shall move on to the next topic, because we are nearly 20 minutes in, and there's been a lot of gibbering happening here, and we've still got another 3 topics.
Rupert Murdoch,
You can't have enough ranting about Rupert Murdoch, really. He's an absolute schneizer of a guy. I don't know what that means. I'm going to call him I'll just move on. I'm not talking about Rupert Murdoch. But Stephen, this one's all about Kylo Ren, I do believe, I hope. And it's what he's seen in Dagobah's Force Cave. Now this has came via IGN, and it's came via the Star Wars Age of Resistance comic. Stephen, this one is all about Snoke. It's the first episode, and him and Kylo go off. They go off to Dagobah. He takes Kylo to obviously the cave where Luke has his moment with his father, Darth Vader. That great reflection on this was what could happen to you if you don't walk the light.
I wonder if that Luke head was still there.
That'd be great if it was. Vader and the mask and Luke looking ominously up. But that was just a great moment, Stephen. And Kylo gets to have his own darker moment with the nefarious Snoke. What do you make of this? Is this a nice bit of poetry? Is this another beautiful way of establishing out or embellishing out the Kylo Ren character in another medium where we can get more little things that make it an enjoyable watch when you go and watch the movies?
There's always room for these platforms, and if they're fleshing out what we don't see on the screen, then why not? It's very interesting to see as well the road that Snoke takes Ben on as well. It kind of it's building the sort of bricks on his sort of downfall from the light side, and he's transitioned to the dark side as well. It's very interesting to see as well that he's taken him to this specific place as well. I don't know how Snoke knew about this, because it was only 2 people, well, probably Ben as well, the Force Ghost anyway. Ben Kenobi knew about what happened on Dagobah, but it really was just between Luke and Yoda. And I'm saying Yoda because he was there, but
he died.
But what Luke took into that cave was himself. It was only himself. So it's very interesting to see how Snoke, as powerful as he was, how he was able to establish this area in the galaxy, and what had happened there, and what it meant to Luke and his sort of training as well. I don't know if it explains in the comic or not.
Not in this little snippet we get, Steve.
It certainly doesn't, but the artwork, John, is formidable. Just looking at Luke Skywalker, this is the Luke Skywalker I wanted to see after Return of the Jedi, so it's very interesting to see, and it's good to see that they're building these stories, especially for Kylo Ren as well, because it didn't really sit nice with me, the explanation of his sort of fall to the dark side in The Last Jedi. It felt too forced at times. But again, it's only because we're coming in at a certain point, very much like the First Order's formation. We're getting to see it in its full glory, and it's quite jarring at times. Same for Ben's turn to Kylo Ren. It's very jarring, but as I said, these platforms sort of serve that purpose and tell these little stories that probably aren't as interesting to see on film, but in comic books and novels, they certainly do fit in there.
Yeah, Stephen, that's one of my remaining gripes of this sequel trilogy, that we have not done enough to focus on the villain. Snoke has had no focus on him in terms of the actual cinematic universe. No. We don't know anything about him, what motivated him, where he's came from, why he obviously wants Skywalker dead so badly. we don't know that much about Kylo's motivations as well, what drove him to the dark side. We're having to rely on canon, extended canon universes and obviously comics and whatnot and novels to get this drip fed to us. And I think that's poor writing, Stephen,
well,
on the
apart
movies.
from Han and Leia mentioning, you know, it was all Snoke. What was all Snoke? We know that he's a manipulator. We know that he was influencing Ben in his turn, but as I said, it's in these formats that we're having to establish this. It's frustrating for if you're a Star Wars film fan, because you're not getting to see all this. It's, as I said, it's very jarring at times. You've got that gap from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, and slowly but surely The Mandalorian will help us along the way, and these other television series, John. But it's good to see that they are picking these things up, because I know you can't put everything in film. You can't put everything in the one film. It would have been nice to see a bit more, as you said, of the villain in this trilogy, John, because it's something that has been missed. Maybe we'll get it in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes, Stephen, everyone slagged also Anakin Skywalker's fault, the dark side in the prequel trilogy, but I think even that being rushed it's been much better handled than the explanation for Kylo overall in the sequel. Perhaps it will be redeemed come The Rise of Skywalker, though. My only explanation, though, Stephen, for how they have managed to happen upon Dagobah and know of where this Force cave is that perhaps Luke has confided in Kylo of what's happened, and then Snoke's been able to access his thoughts through the Force and then take him, manipulate him further, because there's a lot of manipulation going on in this little comic image from a comic where he's basically saying, I don't want to fight you. He's very much with Kylo in the cave, unlike Yoda. He wasn't with Luke in the cave, and he's obviously edging him on, saying that he didn't want, he's scared of you, feared how formidable you could become. So he's, again, it's just all part of the manipulation, and it's almost foreshadowing what we've seen with Luke, albeit he was on the lighter side of the Force. He's utilising the steps that Skywalker, aka Luke Skywalker, took before him, but he's trying to use it in a way to send Kylo into the darkness. So it's very, very cool, Steve, to see the story's been expanding out. I will say this, the comics are incredible, the novels are incredible, and the TV shows and obviously Rebels and whatnot. It's been beautiful how they've managed to further expand out on the prequels and whatnot, and that gap in between the Return of the Jedi and obviously the Force Awakens. And hopefully we get more and more of it, because as you did say, Stephen, there just isn't enough time in the movies to do justice to all of the characters and all of the things they want to do. And there's not enough time, Stephen, to continue talking about this topic either, so I will move on swiftly to Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker star, aka Anthony Daniels, teasing the reason for C-3PO's red eyes. Now, Stephen, I've read through this, and it is just... wow, it's rambling. He's rambling away incoherently down a rabbit hole, continually repeating that he is front and centre. Now, not at one point does he even come close. It's like, I think, Billy Madison, is it, where they end up at the back of the end on the speech. Not at any point does he ever come close to giving the correct answer as to why this character has red eyes. Not close. The reason is, quite clearly, that they have toys to sell. And if they can make incremental changes between films to sell more merchandise,
but the plot,
then now
John,
they will do it.
The plot, we were talking about it before we came on, the situation with C-3PO and where he will end up at the end of this trilogy. And I think you actually made a good point. You know, this might be the point of no return for C-3PO. This might be the red eyes of death.
Good heavens.
Yeah, certainly got the ring of death on the old Xbox 360. As you remember, John, he's got 2 ring of deaths on that Fazogger of his. Fazogger as in face. It's an interesting theory you came up with, John. I never thought of that, other than it's to sell toys, but it could be the end of C-3PO, and why not? You know, I think Anthony Daniels heavily hints, you know, it's a farewell, it's an emotional farewell to the character. And his last scene is quite impactful as well. So,
yeah, all for impactful scenes featuring C-3PO and perhaps even R2-D2 as well, Stephen. They are mainstays in the original trilogy and in the Skywalker saga as a whole. So I personally wouldn't like to see C-3PO meet his end before the end's shot in The Rise of Skywalker. I think it'd be beautifully poetic if they were there right to the end They have always been there or thereabouts in end shots of Star Wars movies, so I hope he doesn't meet his end. But the way that Anthony Daniels is talking here, it does seem to me that perhaps he may be meeting his end at some point. Stephen, we both spoke about the plot leak, potential leaked plot of the Rise of Skywalker, and in that they say that a potential reason for the red eyes is that they need to decipher Sith. I think what the hell was it? Hieroglyphics or something along those lines. Anyway, it was a language, a Sith language to access a wayfinder to find the way to the Emperor in the uncharted regions of the galaxy. And even C-3PO didn't have the wherewithal to be able to, or the ability to be able to decipher this language. So they had to go and get a specific
6 million forms of communication.
6 million forms of communication, Stephen, and
That's not one of them.
He couldn't even read the instructions to find this wayfinder. So they had to go.
I think it's a bit of coincidence that Anakin Skywalker, who created them, deliberately left that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, very nefarious, Anakin. But Stephen, essentially, they had to fit a compartment in, or a component into him, to make him able to then read this language and help them on their merry way to find the Emperor.
As well.
So it may be that there is an element of truth within that, and that this component inadvertently turns his eyes red, Sith language and all, and perhaps drives old C-3PO mental, and he has to meet his merry end. I don't know, but I think that's likely.
His maker,
I see no other reason why he would have to have red eyes, unless he's been turned into a deaf 3PO, Death Trooper. He's turned evil. I think perhaps it is. I think there's an element of truth there, Stephen. He's having to read Sith artifacts, and they have to fit a special component into him, and it turns his eyes red briefly. Who knows? Lord knows, Stephen. I don't know if you want to touch upon that final topic very, very briefly before we move swiftly on to the end of the show.
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes to briefly go through. It's a short topic anyway. Essentially, Stephen, there is 2 absolute classic Star Wars games being announced to be coming to the Nintendo Switch. This was at Wednesday there. It's Nintendo Direct. It's I think a monthly or every now and again. Nintendo do a special thing where they announce the next slate of releases, and they have announced, Stephen, that Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast will both be making their way to the Switch. Now these are classic games, Stephen, renowned for the lightsaber battling in them. Are you excited for this?
Well, I remember the one from the Xbox, John. I know you remember the other one from the PC. It seems to be a common thing, that these great games, I don't know who made them, if it was Lucas.
I think it was Lucasfilm, LucasArts,
but it's good to see they're getting revived in different formats. Definitely, both of us got the Nintendo Switch, so I think it's a good platform to put them on.
Yeah, Stephen, it'll all depend on how they price it, because certainly for the PC, you can get these for like £5 or something now, so they'd have to price it very competitively for me to want to part and get it, but certainly tailor-made. You can sit in your house with a Switch, on your couch, you can be on the move and play it, and it's a beautiful game with Kyle Katarn, obviously a Katarn, as the main protagonist, another chap lost to the annals of time from the expanded universe. One of the great characters, I have to say.
Han Solo-esque,
Han Solo-esque, yes, but with a touch of Luke Skywalker in there, what we all wanted to see really. But look, not much more to add, really excited for it. Glad to see Nintendo's getting more Star Wars games. I say more, I don't think they have any at the moment, so I'm getting Star Wars games. But look guys, what did you make of the array of topics we spoke about? Are you excited for The Mandalorian exploring the First Order's origins? Are you excited or disheartened that Boba Fett is not going to be in it? What did you think of Kylo going with good old Snoke to Dagobah? And does that make sense to you? What did you make of the games and all of the in-between in this week's show? Comment below if you have anything to say about any of them. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying content like this. And me and Stephen will both be back on Monday with MBE Box Office.